Good morning and welcome to Fast Horses Today for Friday. Today is November 14th and it's the start of the race week out at Del Mar. Now, it might be the only race day of the week for Del Mar. They're going to have some heavy rains coming in today and, during the evening hours. So Del Mar has actually changed their post time. So just make note, Del Mar's post time for their first race is 12 o'clock Pacific, so 2 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. They moved it up a half hour because they're going to try to get their races in before the heavy rains come. I guess the heavy rains are supposed to be coming in this afternoon over there, and they've already announced that they're canceling their racing for Saturday due to the expected heavy rain. So, as of now, they're running today at Del Mar, 12 o'clock Pacific first post time. They're canceled Saturday, and then I guess Sunday, they're going to try and run, but I guess we'll see, to be determined on what happens out there. But let's get started with today's card. So I've got, it's a good card here for Friday. I'm expecting, the first few races to be on a dry, fast surface, and I don't know if it's going to rain during the day. It might get sloppy later on. I'm not exactly sure. We might have to call out Jim Cantori, to give us an hour by hour or something. But as it stands, it looks like the first few races should be, carded as expected, with the turf races staying on turf. So I've got 3 win bets I want to make today on Friday's card to start the week. First one being in the second race. Second race has, an approximate post time about 12:30 there Pacific time, so about 2:30 here Central Time Zone. It's a maiden special weight, California bred maiden special weight. These are fillies or 2-year-olds, and they're going a mile on the grass. Now I'm handicapping this race as if it's staying on the grass. If for some reason it gets washed off, then we're going to skip the pick, but we're going to right now handicap this as if it's still going to be a mile on the grass. I've got a win bet I'm going to make here in this race if it stays on the grass, that being on the 2-horse, Cecilia Street, for Leonard Powell. Mercure DeMuro on the horse here. Now, Powell's horses have been running really well lately. He had a pretty good meet over at Santa Anita as well to finish off that fall meet. And I think he's, his horses have done pretty well here at Del Mar so far. Cecilia Street is, a 3-time starter. Is by an unusual heat mare. Now, as years ago, Unusual Heat was, the king of California as far as sires. They certainly were great on the turf, and they could do a whole lot, but you don't see it as much anymore. But I'm thinking, on the mom side is where this horse is going to like the turf. She's by Stanford. Now, Stanford, is probably not, the most turf influence there, but, certainly speed. And, we've seen the Cowbreds, the Stanford Cowbreds, do pretty well in different surfaces and different distances. So Cecilia Street ran twice over at Del Mar in the summer meet and some of those maiden special weights on the sprints, and it just didn't look like she wanted anything to do with sprinting. She just ran some even races or so, and as I mentioned, it just didn't look like sprinting was her game, even though she's by Stanford. But when they put her on the grass over at Santa Anita, it was a 2-turn grass race. She ran with a couple of these in this race, and I really liked her race. I don't think she got the best of trips, for a first-time 2-turn, first-time turf, and I thought she handled the adversity pretty nicely, finishing third. She got beat by Drewliner, who Drewliner will probably be the favorite in this race. But I feel like Cecilia Street definitely has a lot more room for improvement, where I'm not sure if Drewliner is just kind of showing you what she's got. So I think Cecilia Street's going to improve off that first effort on the turf, going 2 turns. DeMuro takes the call again, and DeMuro has been riding exceptionally well at Del Mar for this meet. I mean, something just clicked on, and he's been doing some great work there at Santa Anita. So I got DeMuro a couple times here. I think he's got some live mounts. So we're going to be leaning heavily on Mercure DeMuro today. So Cecilia Street is 3-1 in the program. I'm going to guess we'll probably get something like that because, as I mentioned, it looks like the 7 Drewliner will probably take a lot of heavy action, and we'll probably get a good price on the 2-horse Cecilia Street in the second race. All right, now let's move over to the 4th race of the day. The 4th race is another maiden race. They've got some nice maidens today at Del Mar. And, I don't know, about you folks out there, if you like betting maiden races or you shy away from them. I've always liked maiden races. I think maiden races really run very true to form, and these horses show you early what they've got, and they show you their ability, or they show you if they don't have ability. So as a handicapper horse player, I do like maiden special weights. So This one is an open maiden special weight. This is 6.5 on the dirt. We've got a nice field of horses signed on, some nice pedigrees, some big purchase prices. So, I mean, this is a very nice race. I like these type of races to play. You know, you've got the 2 horses. A Simple Song is a big purchase price, nicely bred horse here who, you know, will probably get some action. You know, there's a couple horses who have run first time, ran some really big races and some really big speed figures. Now, I'm betting that both of these horses will kind of bounce off those races, and you know, this race will be open for another horse. So, you know, a horse like Simple Song certainly will get some action based off of his last race, you know, being a really big race, finishing second in a sprint at Santa Anita, big speed figure, and the 5-horse Latitude for John Sadler. Now, this horse, another, you know, pretty big purchase price. This horse came second to Modus Bestia, and Modus Bestia, we saw, you know, ran a big race at Del Mar that day towards the end of the meeting to break his maiden, and he came back to win again at Del Mar during the Breeders' Cup weekend. So Latitude came second that race. Big speed figure. You know, Mike Smith signs on again. This horse is 2-1. I'm sure will take a lot of action. I'm going to go against Latitude. You know, I think that, you know, maybe the 2 and 5 might, you know, duke it out some here. They both show some speed, some forward position. They might, you know, end up, you know, kind of doing each other in. So I'm going to make the win bet on the 8-horse, who is Cheever. Cheever for Mark Glatt. Mark Glatt has 2 of them in here, both for the same owners, Muir Hut Stables. You know, he's got the 2, as I mentioned, Simple Song, and here the 8 in Cheever. Now, Cheever has the benefit of some experience, having 4 races. You know, having run at Santa Anita a couple times in sprint races earlier this spring, summer, and then also running at Del Mar. This horse has shown some nice races, I feel, and, you know, had run up against some tough winners in some of these maiden races. So, for example, in his races at Santa Anita, he ran up against a couple tough winners in Southern Gentleman, and then the next time out, he ran up against Sierra Silver. And those 2 were Bob Baffert horses, if I'm not mistaken, who were just, you know, just very ready to win and very ready to run that day, and did. Now, they tried Cheever at a distance at Del Mar, his first try at Del Mar, which was early in the summer meet. Horse had kind of a rough trip. He didn't break out so well, got kind of sawed off. He ran up against Privman's another Bob Baffert horse who is very good. Ran a big race that day and came back to win again. So this horse, you know, has run against some nice winners, as I mentioned. He also comes out of that Modus Bestia race running with Latitude. Now, he came third. Latitude beat him, came second that race. But I feel like Cheever is going to have an advantage here, breaking from the outside. I think he could let the race develop in front of him in a nice stalking position. Frasu's been on this horse several times, so he knows this horse. This horse certainly has a lot of ability. This is another big purchase price here, $700,000 purchase price. I think 6.5 will be a great distance for this horse. He's run, you know, this distance, has run nicely. Cheever's 5-1 in the program. I'm going to guess we're going to get somewhere around there. I think Cheever's worth a win bet. I'm going to make the win bet in the 4th race on the 8-horse. Cheever. Now let's go to the next race we're going to play here, that being the 6th race. Now the 6th race is another maiden special weight. This is a mile on the dirt. These are open company fillies. These are 2-year-olds. So these are some, again, some nice pedigrees here, some nice purchase prices. You know, these could be some future stars. There's some, as I mentioned, really nice pedigrees in this race here. So, you know, these could be some of the nice future performers we'll see on the California circuit. You know, Baffert brings in a couple horses that are very nice with some big pedigrees. Baffert's got the 5-horse who is Luckiest. Luckiest is by Into Mischief out of a multiple stakes winner as time goes by, who was a Baffert trainee. The horse had run some nice stakes races for the same connections, I believe, for Magnier, Tabor, and Smith, those guys out of Coolmore. And, you know, they bred this horse here. I think this is her first to race. You know, we'll see how, you know, it'll be nice to see a horse like this run. I don't have her today to win, but, you know, we'll see what she develops into. He's also got another one here, the 8-horse Consequent. Consequent by Juddmonte Farm bred here. So nice to see the Juddmonte colors there in California. This is one of their homebreds, as most of them are. This horse is out of the mare Cognitive. Now, Cognitive certainly has dropped some winners in her, you know, broodmare career. And so some of the siblings of Consequent have won in California. But I don't think I've seen any of them win their first start. So it seems like this family needs maybe a couple starts to get going. I know this horse is 7-2. You know, we'll see, you know, again, see a nice horse run, and you'll see some promise going forward, but I don't have her today either. What I do have is I'm going to make a win bet on a long shot here. That being the 4-horse, Total Val. Total Val comes out of the Richard Mandela barn, and Another big purchase price here. This horse cost $450,000. Spendthrift Farms is the owner here, and certainly they're a team with Richard Mandela over the decades. Now, I've watched this horse's film, and I noticed something here. She's run 3 times in her career. She ran twice at Del Mar in maiden sprint races, short races, both 5.5 furlongs. She run up against some fast horses, and Explora and Rivera got beat by both of those horses. And we saw Explora turn into a nice horse here this fall, in some nice 2-year-old races, having won a graded race. And I think she came second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, second or third, but I know she ran pretty well a couple weeks back. But Total Val looks to me like she wanted nothing to do with sprinting. She ran some even races there, so that showed me that she had ability, but sprinting was just not going to be her game. They put her in at a mile last time. She ran at Santa Anita in a mile race. She ended up running up against Super Corridora, and we all saw how really nice Super Corridora was. She followed that win up with a big win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, at Del Mar. Now, a couple of these come out of that Super Corridora race, and, in watching that film, the 4-horse Total Val, Mirko DeMuro made a middle move with this horse. And, she dropped way far back, which you probably don't want to do that. You're just not going to come from that far back. Made a middle move and then kind of had to stop and get stopped and started again going towards the far turn. So I like that middle move. I like the ability the horse showed. I don't really like the ride from Mirko DeMuro, but you know what? As I mentioned, DeMuro's riding really well. Seems like everything is just clicking for him, and he's just been really on top of his game. Now, we know that there's a great relationship with Richard Mandela and Mirko DeMuro, so that's a nice pair there. I like the experience that Total Val got out of that mile race. I think she's going to be much better here. Her workout patterns show me that it looks like the Mandela barn's trying to put a little more speed into her, a little more forward positioning with some short, fast works. So, maybe they don't want her dropping back that far and making that big move. It's tough to do in California. You don't see a lot of horses making those huge moves from double-digit lengths. So it looks like maybe they want her a little closer, and that's probably going to be the instructions here. I feel like if Total Val can be a little closer to the field and make that move that she showed in her last race, I think she could come running by this field at the top of the stretch and finishing up nicely. Distance should be no problem for her. If it does rain, I don't think the wet track will be a problem for her. She's out of a mare by Orb. We saw Orb do great things in the slop. Orb ended up winning the Kentucky Derby years ago, so slop certainly has no problem there with that bloodline. And, being by Into Mischief runs on everything, so no problems there. So if it does turn up a little wet, a little sloppy, I don't know if it will by that race. Total Val shouldn't have a problem with that type of footing. So I'm going to make a win bet in the 6th race on the 4 Total Val. All right, now let's recap the day and recap the bets. Okay, so for Friday, to start out the race week at Del Mar, today is November 14th. We've got 3 win bets to make throughout this Friday card. We're going to start out in the 2nd race, betting the 2 Cecilia Street. The 4th race, the 8-horse Cheever. The 6th race, the 4-horse Total Val. So those are 3 win bets I'm going to make. If you decide to make those win bets, I wish you the best of luck. If you want to use some of those horses in your multi-race wagers, they do fall within that first pick 5 and in that second pick 5 as well. Whatever you decide to do, I wish you the best of luck. Let's wish the folks over at Del Mar a very safe day of racing today. Let's wish ourselves some good luck and some good trips. As we've seen, that really does make a difference over at Del Mar and getting wins. Let's try and start this race week off in a winning way at Del Mar. As always, I thank you so much for listening to the picks and watching Fast Horses today. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed. We've had a really increased audience lately. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the new viewers and new subscribers. If you haven't done so, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. It just delivers the content directly to you. You could like, dislike, make comments, whatever you decide to say. I want to hear you, and we can create a discussion. I promise to respond. So as always, thanks again, and let's have a great day to start off the week at Del Mar, where the turf meets the surf, and we'll see what the schedule comes up this week. We might have more coverage for Sunday. Thank you.